All right, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about how to learn how to graze in 45 minutes. We're gonna talk about a few of our different products, also the difference between grazing and wall washing, kind of unique grazing techniques that we've seen in the industry that are working very well, and a bunch more stuff. And so, very excited about this. This is a unique one. I'd love to hear your feedback at the end. But we're gonna get into the slides here first, and then be doing some live demo. Just note, it's always very hard to capture light correctly through a video camera, so it might be a little bit darker than normal. We're trying to be able to showcase our lighting properly, specifically the RGBW. All right, we'll get into the slides here. Okay, so quarterly virtual specifier training. This is Q2 2024. We're going to do a little bit of a recap on the last 2 quarters. This is kind of how the process usually works, just to go over some of the things that we talked about in the past in case you missed it. Just note, though, at the end, we'll talk about the YouTube Elemental LED YouTube page. We have all of the past quarterly virtual specifier trainings on there, so they're recorded, so you can watch those if you weren't able to check them out. So Q4 2023, the last quarter, we talked about the Streamlight family. So I just want to put this back on your radar. This is a chip-on-board dotless tape light platform. And we have, right now, we have static white and a bunch of different CCTs, also wet located. And then we also have tunable white and RGBW. And then in the future, we are really investing in this dotless platform. So we will be coming out with warm dim in Streamlight family, as well as RGBTW possibly, and even maybe pixel in Streamlight. So very excited about that. Be on the lookout. Those should be coming maybe at the end of this year. Some of them might be in Q1 2025. And then we talked about Q1 2024. So sorry, this was actually the last quarterly virtual specifier training. We talked about the Linear Flex profile. So this is 6 profiles that we just released. I think at the time we hadn't even released most of them. So now they are on the website. You can order them. You can do factory assembled with them now, as well as field assembled. And remember, there was really 3 major things about this: that they were completely dotless and architectural. But also, there's 2 profiles that are 3D. So you can see them there. They're still rectangular, flat top, but we were able to use a new type of patented technology where we infuse a spine to the actual tape light to make it modular. Because traditionally, tape light could not bend on the horizontal axis. So this allows you now to be able to go up a wall, connect to the ceiling, and then turn it around the other way. Really gives you endless design capabilities as well as installation capabilities. And then the third thing that was very massive, with 5 of the 6 of these profiles, are what is a new type of patented tape light called free cut tape light. And this allows you to be able to cut it anywhere you want. Traditionally, with outdoor silicone products, in the beginning, it was every 8-inch cut points, and then it got better, every 6 inches, then every 4 inches, and then we were one of the first companies to come out with a every 2-inch cut point. And now you can take this product and be able to cut it anywhere you want in the field, to fit it and integrate into any architectural detail, and then just terminate it in the field. So really, really cool possibilities with this. I'm very excited about it. So again, if you don't have samples, we'd love to ship you out so you can play with them in hand and see the quality with these 6 profiles. All right, so let's get into the day. So Q2 2024, really the idea behind this is trying to dispel not only the some of the fears that people have in getting into grazing, maybe they've never done it before, but also learning about the differences between grazing and wall washing, and grazing and scalloping, and why you would use one versus the other. So let's get into it. This is really right here is, to me, the reason why you graze. You're trying to be able to pull out the dramatic effect from some type of textured wall. And we talk about this in lighting a lot. Sometimes people think that to overlight something and just bring as much light to a surface is the way to go. And really, just like life, you don't have up without down, you don't have good without bad. You need contrast. And so that's what grazing allows you to do, to give you contrast between the shadowing on the actual textured wall versus the actual light. And so really can create these very dramatic effects. Sorry, here we go. So really, though, to highlight textures is one of the first reasons to use grazing, to bring surfaces to life. So if there is something where maybe a customer spent a lot of money on this stone fireplace, They put a lot of money into the stone. It was unique stone, and this is a centerpiece for them in their living room. This is a great example of bringing grazing in versus some type of wall washing. Wall washing would just wash that wall. You would not see any of the texture. The colors would not come out nearly as good versus bringing actual surfaces to life using grazing, where you can skim down that wall and pull out that texture, but also draw people's eyes to it. And that's the point, is you're trying to bring them into this space and draw their eyes to that centerpiece. And then obviously the other point is to increase the drama in the architecture. And so with grazing, some of the most unique applications and projects that we have worked on have utilized grazing in that project. They've also utilized wall washing as well. But it really can bring that drama that's sometimes needed, but at a very cost-effective and somewhat easy installation and design. So really cool. I want to get into, though, the differences, though, between wall washing and grazing, because this is something that I have talked to a lot of people in the industry, and some people still don't know really the difference and why you would use wall washing here versus grazing. Sometimes even people misconstrue and use the word grazing when they really mean wall washing, or vice versa. So I wanted to talk about these definitions here. So wall washing, it's a lighting technique in which vertical, indirect lighting is placed in the ceiling or floor at a wider distance from the wall. This way, the light can fall down on the wall in an equal, uniform way. This provides a washed effect of the wall so that shadows and defects disappear from the wall. And so I want you to remember that, we'll come back to it, that last part, where the effect of the wall so that shadows and defects disappear from the wall. Grazing is to scrape, and believe it or not, in one of the Greek, I think it was the Greek root for grazing, it actually means to scrape. And so that is what you're doing. You are scraping this wall with architectural light. So to scrape an architectural detail with light, the wall grazing effect is achieved by placing directional light fixtures close to the wall and lighting it at a narrow angle. This angle draws the eye to the wall's texture by creating shadows. Again, remember, drawing the eyes to the wall and also creating that shadow. Shadows can be intensified or softened by moving the light closer to or further from the wall, which changes the angle. Also, there's another point to that. You can also change the dramatic effect of those shadows by just changing the beam spread, which we'll talk about later when we get into the Graze X. All right, so this is a rendering that we did. You can actually try this out at home when you have a wall washer and a grazer and see the differences. But really, with grazing, right, you are purposely trying to draw the eyes to the texture of the wall and create that dramatic effect. Wall washing is where maybe you have some type of artwork, maybe 3 different art pieces on the wall, but you have a very standard, not unique wall at all. Maybe it even has some defects on it, some scuffing, some weird stuff that's on it. When you would want to wall wash there, you would want to wash that wall, still bring eyes to the artwork, because that's obviously the centerpiece, but then the wash of the wall is going to make it very difficult for someone's eyes to see all of those different imperfections. And that is the point of wall washing, right? And that's the big thing I want to dispel today, and why you would use one versus the other. It's really about, in my opinion, it's about the wall. If the wall is worth showcasing and bringing your eye to it, then you should graze it. Specifically, though, you need to have some type of texture. We have people all the time that will try to wash very, very minimalistic texture on wall, and it's very difficult. We can sometimes do it with our 10 degree, but you definitely want some type of depth and texture to that wall. And then, again, just to hammer it home, washing is where you don't want to see any of those defects on the wall. You want to get rid of that and allow that art piece or whatever you're trying to showcase be the centerpiece. So, really, though, the definition by lighting designers that I have read on IES and design blogs, is that wall washing is really 12 inches away from the wall or more, and grazing is, by definition, 12 inches or closer to the wall, and using a more narrow beam spread, right? So that's the idea. You're trying to bring it closer to the wall and, again, scrape that wall with light, versus wall washing is more of a splatter of light. Scalloping versus grazing I am not traditionally as much of a fan of scalloping. Obviously, some people love to use scalloping. This was much more popular back in the day. You would have these pillars, they would shine down light and create these more dramatic effects to bring your eyes to it. So scalloping, though, is real, or light scallops. Light scallop is an effect created when the recessed fixture is placed closer to the wall, resulting in more concentrated and tighter scallop. Scallop lights effects are often a part of the lighting plan for added drama. However, they can be inadvertently created if the fixture placement is not properly calculated. Okay, so this is the difficulty of scalloping. With a grazer, specifically our linear Graze X, which has tape light at its base, this allows you now to take that same wall and be able to just run linear horizontally across it and have an actual even graze throughout the entire wall. Scalloping, as you can see on the left picture here, right? This is where you are trying to create those kind of half circle, half oval types of effects, but obviously you have to be very careful about it to make sure that you get it right, because if you have that fixture placement not mounted in the correct spacing, you're going to have scallopings that are too far away, or they cross each other and it doesn't look good. Grazing, though, obviously, again, is for a more dramatic effect on textured surfaces such as stucco, stone, or brick. And you place the fixture 6 to 12 inches away. We will talk about that mounting later, though, because our Graze X is a little bit different than doing 6 inches. You have to actually do a little bit closer. But grazing is not recommended on smooth surfaces, as surface imperfections will be exaggerated. I think that's another great way to say it. Surface imperfections will be exaggerated. So here is an example of where someone used downlights to scallop a very beautiful stone wall that's above, or brick, or I don't know what it is, but above the fireplace. Versus what they could have done is they could have taken our Graze X, ran that linear all the way across, and that entire textured part of the wall would have been evenly grazed without having these hot spots. This is the issue and why I do not like scalloping. Is, to me, that just looks like hot spots. Yes, it does draw your eyes to it, so I understand the point of it, but I like my lighting and grazing specifically to be more even. Also, you would have not gotten any of that light pollution that you see down on the fireplace. That's the other issue with scalloping, is that a lot of times the light there's a lot of light leakage with scalloping. It comes off the wall and then it hits areas or surface areas in the space that you do not want light on. And in my opinion, this looks like there's some glare spots on that fireplace instead of keeping that light consistently on the actual textured wall. So, traditional issues with grazing fixtures. Grazing was kind of a new type of lighting technique that, I would estimate came around, started becoming much more popular maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And the issue is that when the lighting designers loved to use this technique, but it was hard to actually keep it on a job. As we all know, lighting is one of the last things on a job. So every other trade and every other part of the project ends up going over budget. And then, of course, we have to end up budgeting down lighting. And so they would put these very high-end, unique, very large, very expensive, sometimes on average $300 a foot, grazers, put it on the job, do the design, and then when it went to bid, no one was like, hey, I'm not paying $300 a foot for this grazer. And they would switch out to maybe some downlights that just shine on the wall, maybe some Juno track lights, maybe a cheaper wall washer. And obviously now the intentional design was not kept. So that was the issue with grazing. Mainly too expensive, not customizable. We're going to come back to that in a second. Size restrictions, adjustability of the fixture, light leakage, and poor performance. The three that I really want to focus on is and specifically the not customizable. So we have the Graze X that we'll be talking about here in a second, and this uses tape light at its base, and that is why it's a unique grazer, because most grazers out there are using different types of light modules as their light source. But because we use tape light at the base, we can now customize this grazer to any dimension you want, from 6 inches up to 8 feet. You can still daisy chain them, but also you can choose any dimension within the inch. So 6 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches. So imagine now, traditionally what would happen is there's a 44-inch wall. And actually, we'll switch over to the thing for just a second to show them here. Imagine right here, this is a 44-inch wall. Just work with me here. And unfortunately, you are working with a company or a manufacturer that has only 18 inches, 24 inches, 36 inches, 48 inches. Okay, you're stuck with those dimensions. You can't customize them. So what happens? If there is adjacent walls right here coming off, now you can't use the 48 incher. It's going to not fit. So do you use the 36 incher? Well, that might be a problem. You might now only be grazing down the actual middle of the wall and have dead spots on the end. That was the main conception behind GrazeX, was allowing people to customize that grazer within that architectural detail that they were trying to graze. So, moving back to the slides here. Okay, another big one, right, is size restrictions. So we talked about having non-customization with the dimensions. The other thing, though, is there's a lot of grazers out there that the largest they get is 48 inches. And with ours, because we are using tape light, we can now actually go up to 8-foot sections, but then also daisy chain them to do a massive continuous line of grazing that's very low profile and evenly grazing that wall. That's a big one. And then also the light leakage. So light leakage is very important. It's unfortunately not taken seriously enough in grazing, specifically where you are trying to allow as much of that light and beam spread to hit the wall that you're trying to graze, and you do not want leakage of the light coming off, because now this disrupts the actual intensity of the light that's being produced on the wall, but also it can be glary. You can get light where you don't want it. So for example, that stone fireplace application, that would be considered light leakage. They were trying to get lighting on the actual stone, but what happened is some of the lighting came off to the side and ended up hitting the fireplace, so they got some glare. So that's the best part about our product, specifically the GrazeX and OBD, is that there is very, very, very little light leakage. If you ever come up to factory training here, we bring you into our this dark room where we show you the GrazeX and how it works, and you can see the beam spread on the ground, and you can see it, that there's no striations on the side of the beam spread, which is very, very typical with a lot of grazers on the market. So these are just some old school grazers that I looked on the internet, very common in the industry. You know, they're bulky, they don't look good, they're ugly, there's a lot of times very, very expensive, you know, on average $200 to $300 a foot. Also very hard to install. You know, at the one on the ground there on the last picture here, where is it? There we go, sorry. This one right here, you know, imagine, you know, having to put that up on the ceiling. You know, what do? You build out a pocket frame. That's a lot of depth there. If you put it on the ground, that's an eyesore. Now you have to try to recess that into the ground. So that the large form factors have been really an issue in the industry. Give you another one right here. So our solution. So let's get into our products, and we'll talk a little bit about the philosophy behind them. We're going to get into the performance features, as well as talk about the different ways that you can mount them and all your mounting accessory options. So we have I think we actually did a quarterly virtual specifier training on the GrazeX. We have also done a reel-to-reel on the GrazeX, as well as the OBD. So if you're ever looking for a little bit more of a deep dive into those products, I definitely suggest checking out our Elemental LED YouTube page. You'll be able to find those there. Those are times where I get to have more time to really get into the details. Today we're gonna have to go through it a little bit quicker, but the GrazeX was really our first entry into the grazing world. We did have a grazer channel. It just didn't have much adjustability, wasn't very high in performance. So we came out with the GrazeX, and we actually have we worked with a lot of lighting designers to create this. This actually came from the minds of lighting designers in New York. They talked about all the issues I was explaining earlier about how they couldn't find a grazer that was affordable, that they could get on jobs. All the grazers out there were sourced overseas, you know, 6 to 8 week lead times. They were very bulky, and they had a lot of issues. So they came to us and were like, hey, could you know, try out your hand at grazing? And so we went to the drawing boards. We also worked with optical scientists. Believe it or not, they exist out there, people that are experts in optical control, to come up with this patented GrazeX system that has an extruded dual lens optic. And that's the unique part about it. And I'll talk about that here in just a second on the demo. So this is the GrazeX, some of the higher level features that you get with the GrazeX. Can you move the mouse off it? Sorry. I was just, there we go. Thank you. The Grazer fixture, it's a precise though, but that patented dual extruded narrow optic is the unique part about this Grazer, allowing that tape light, which tape light is usually always 120 degrees, right? It's if you look at it on an IES file, tape light just looks like a ball of light. It has no optical control for the most part. So this extruded dual lens system allows us to narrow that 120 degrees to create a very, very precise beam spread depending on what you want, 10, 30, or 60 degrees. The other main thing to always bring up with your customers, if you're a specifier and you're trying to, justify this Grazer, is that this is not like traditional Grazers. This is a minimalistic design, but it's still very, very bright. You can do up to like 40-foot walls with this if you go up to the highest lumen output. But with all of these performance features, because we use tape light solutions and minimalistic material like the aluminum channel, we are far more cost effective than most of the Grazers out there. So on average, I would say we're about a fourth of the price of most of these spec grade Grazers. So a lot of people will go, well, that means you're just an entry level, not the best quality. No, you have to get this in your hands. This is a very, very popular product because it does have those performance features with that cost-effective price tag. And then the customizable dimensions. We talked about this earlier, 6 inches all the way up to 8 feet. And I want you to hear, just take a little tip and trick on this. The 6-incher one, when you can get it down that size, you can use just one of the articulating arms. And we've actually done a lot of projects where we're taking these pillars and we're actually mounting the Graz-X, but it looks almost like like an actual fixture by itself. It's only 6 inches in length, and actually putting it at the top of the pillar and then grazing down the pillar. Kind of unique, different ways we've done it with some of those smaller Graz-X fixtures. And then the max run is dependent on the lumen output. We are going to talk about this because we're going to talk about the actual tape light used for the Graz-X. But obviously, once you know that it's Valin-X, which we'll get into, you can then obviously take a look at the Valin-X spec sheet. And if you're using the 800 lumens, you can see what the actual max run is. So this is just a little snapshot on our spec sheet of how the daisy chain installation works. So you can see here, these are 2 different fixtures. You can butt them up together. Due to the way our extruded optic works, light will come out to the side. So when you butt them up together, it will look nice and continuous. So I just wanted to show you this. We'll demo it out here in a second, and you can take a look at that actual raceway underneath and how that whole system works. All right, for all my Star Wars nerds out there, may the light source be with you. Right, I want to get into sometimes we showcase the Graz-X as sales reps in the field or as a trainer, but we don't get to always talk about really the bread and butter behind the Graz-X is the light source. And in the end run, when we are designing a job, when we are trying to decide what our customer wants, we need to always start with the light source. What do you want? We'll talk about this later, but being able to figure out the light source and what style of lighting they want, everything else in that component system, the driver, the control system, the accessories, everything falls into place like dominoes. So the tape light that we use, and you guys, some of you are familiar with this. This is our highest performing tape light within the diode LED line, Valin-X. Valin-X is an exceptional tape light. In my opinion, one of the best light sources on the planet. As you can see here, it has 95 plus CRI with 90 plus R9, but also 90 and above on almost all of the R values, R1 through R15. So that is very important. We are actually doing some videos here in the future on why it matters to have good CRI. Why do we need to start taking a look at the TM30 method? Being able to render colors correctly are so important in lighting. As you know, especially if you're a specifier, you obviously are always trying to push your customers to have better color rendering, because people will spend all of this money on the stone wall that they're about to graze, on the geometric wall that they're about to graze, and then they end up putting a cheap grazer with low CRI, and now you are not actually seeing the full potential of that wall. Sometimes, if it's really bad CRI, you'll see it will look almost tinted with a yellow tint or a pink shift. It will look almost like off color. It looks like it's in 720p versus 4K HD. That's the difference. So really, it's important to focus on this light source. The other cool thing though about using Valent X as the base source of light is that you get the CRI, but you get the lumen outputs, so 100 all the way up to 800. A tip and trick for you, and very rarely do we ever do anything under 500. Grazing, you really want to pack a punch, even if it's a shorter wall. You can always dim it if you need to. So just keep that in mind. Even though I'm showing you 100 through 800, my definite recommendation to you would be always use at least 500 or above. And then you also get the 12-year warranty. So just keep that in mind as well. If something goes wrong with this Graze X, install error, it doesn't matter. Something in 3 years, it's starting to flicker, whatever. Just understand that the actual light source at the base has the 12-year warranty. And like we always talk about at Dowd LED, we have the first and second longest warranty in the industry. And then the big one is the max run. So the max run obviously is 80 feet. That's at the low lumen level. So you can take a look at the spec sheet to see what 500 and 800 are. But you can daisy chain this a good amount to be able to do long linear runs. And then the other cool thing is you can also remote transformers, right? And then still be able to daisy chain the rest of them and just have on different power sources and different run lengths. But you can still kind of butt them up together to keep a continuous line of light. Also, because the way this extruded optic dual lens system works, a lot of people think that they can only use just static white with our Graze X. Now, because we also have the Valent series, which we've talked about on these specifier trainings as well as reel-to-reels, Valent is a little bit different than Valent X. The X really stands for that high-performing CRI as well as that the higher warranty. But Valent is still a 90-plus CRI, fantastic tight-pitch tape play. So because we have Valent in the RGBW as well as the warm dim, and if you notice, they're both tight-pitch. So the way these extruded optics work is they have to have the diodes closer together. If you don't have a tight pitch, high density tape light, it will not perform through that optic correctly. So that is why as of now, you can get the Graze X in a bunch of static whites, you can get it in RGBW, and you can get it in warm dim as well. So let's think about the opportunities too, where you could use it. Really, it's just focusing on what is the traditional issues with most grazers out there. A crossover for this fixture is larger, bulkier fixtures, limited set dimensions. I am going to hammer that home today. That is the biggest thing I could explain to you. If you are a specifier trying to work with a customer, if you are a sales rep trying to get Graze X onto a spec job, is that customization of the dimensions and the minimalistic design. That is the most important part about Graze X and what makes it unique in the industry. Also, more expensive fixtures, lower performing fixtures, inconvenient purchases, right? When they have to source it overseas, long lead times. Yeah, they might be this crazy grazer that has all these unique features, but it's 8-week lead time, it's $300 a foot. You might be right for 15% of the grazing applications, but most grazing applications, you don't need all of these unique features. You don't need to be spending $300 a foot. So we're going to talk about optical control within the Graze X, and obviously we'll talk about optical control as well within the OBD and our Broadwave. But optical control is very important, right? Knowing when to use a certain beam spread versus the other. So for us, we actually have a couple unique beam spreads that are not very common in the industry. So a lot of grazers out there, when we first started consulting with lighting designers, the issue they were seeing is that they had a lot of grazers out there that were 12-degree beam spreads, 14-degree beam spreads, 20-degree beam spreads, just all over the place. And so they actually requested us to try to see if we could figure out a 10-degree beam spread, something that's very, very precise. So that is what we came out with first. When we first launched Graze X, we only had one beam spread at first, and then we expanded our beam spreads to 30 degrees, and then the other unique one is the 60 degrees. It is still a grazer. I know a lot of people go, wow, that's a very wide beam spread to be considered a grazer. It still is a very good, precise grazer. It just allows you to have a little bit more forgiving. It's a little bit more forgiving on the wall. It's not as dramatic, but it's sometimes when people don't even know how much the depth of the texture is going to be, but they need to get the products out there, the Graze X out there. That's when we'll maybe push them towards a wider beam spread like the 30 or the 60, because you don't have to be nearly as precise with it. So As you can see here on the next one, this is kind of the differences a little bit with how beam spreads will come out. This is a rendering, so just take that with a grain of salt, but you can see that they're really showcases with 10 degree more of that shadowing, that dramatic effect. 30 degrees is probably our most commonly specified beam spread because it's still very dramatic, but you do not have to you don't have to install it and mount it very precisely. It's a little bit more forgiving. And then you can see on the 60 degree, you still get some of that that shadowing and texture, but again, it's almost similar to like a hybrid in a way. It still washes a little bit of that wall. And then I want to talk about, before I demo here, our louver. And so I'm going to demo all of the stuff that I talked about, but our louver, and some of you might know what the point of a louver is. Really, a louver is for glare control. So when you are specifying GrazeX or you're going to install it, you're doing design build, okay, a lot of times, if you come in late on a project, we weren't there early enough to be able to create a pocket frame of sorts or something that we can recess the GrazeX in. So you're going to have to put it up on the ceiling, and you're going to see it, or you might have to put it on the ground, but you're not able to make it indirect. So you have to see it. It's in direct view. This is where a the louver might come in handy. The louver will still allow you to direct that graze to the wall, but then when you're far enough away from it, you don't get any glare control. The big thing I want you to remember with the louver is mainly to use it on the 30 degree or the 60 degree. You really do not need it on the 10 degree. It is such a precise beam of light going straight up that there is really no glariness on the side view. All right. Let's get into the demo here. So I'm going to showcase really quick on the top down kind of what kind of the parts and components of our GrazeX. I love showcasing our GrazeX with the black finish, with the black louver. I just think it looks nice and sleek. So this is the louver that we just talked about. Okay, we can cut these. We can cut these in-house at the factory, but you can also, I think, cut these in the field. If you notice, though, something that's unique about these is the actual ends, okay, are half the size of the actual middle parts of the louver. So we only offer this in 1 foot sections. So you do have to build these together or have them cut. But this way, when you butt it up together, since this is exactly half the size of the middle, when you butt it up together, you will not have any breaks or inconsistencies in the graze. Okay, so that's the louver. We have this in a standard louver, but we also now have it in the angled louver as well, where it has more of a cutoff. It pushes that light towards the actual wall, almost kind of like an asymmetric louver in a way. And then this is the actual GrazeX. You can see here we're just using this nice aluminum channel, has a raceway on the back here. The raceway is for different types of mounting. So for example, this is our articulating arm. It's using a set screw, so you can adjust it. This just snaps on. You can move it up and down depending on where you want it mounted. You can have the other one here. So we'll usually recommend these articulating arms, but there are people that think these are a little bit too much in depth. So we also have the flat clips as well. So these flat clips, this doesn't give it any adjustability, but when you actually snap it on here, you have a very, very low profile form-fitting mounting accessory. Okay, on our GrazeX 2, we can come out the bottom with our wire entry. We can come out straight wire entry, so out the side, as well as out the side this way. So just keep that in mind. We have multiple different wire entries, either behind, straight wire entry, or out the side. A lot of our grazing applications, though, they are coming out the bottom so that this way the wire is hidden when you have the louver on there as well, and the wire goes straight up, maybe into an open ceiling where you can do your remote transformer. So, okay, so that is the difference between the louver, right, and the mounting accessories. But I also wanted to showcase the difference between our 10 degree, and we're going to use just the 30 degree here today. Okay, so I'll go over here to this geometric wall. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the 10 degree and showcase kind of the dramatic effect here. So see if Ted, let me know if this is coming out on camera. Yeah. Okay. So you can see up here, right? So you get this really nice contrast. And you can see here, though, I am mounting it pretty close to the actual wall. So in my recommendation with the Graze X is to have it no more than 4 inches away from the wall. So you really want to keep this nice and snug to that geometric wall. Okay. I'm also going to show the magic trick, which is unique to the Graze X. So as you can see here on the wall, yep, there we go. I can put my hand in front of it, and it doesn't block the light. Okay, this is due to that optical dual lens extruded optic. And this is very important for a lot of areas where people graze commonly, or like restaurants and breweries. They have a bunch of those stone and brick walls everywhere, but it will usually be an open ceiling, and there'll be cross beams all over the place. So traditionally, you would have to take the dimensions and put a grazer here, then you'd have to stop it, put a new grazer on the next one so that the cross beam didn't actually block the grazing. This essentially you could graze straight through. It will go straight through the cross beam, and then also if there's a sprinkler on the wall, if there's a camera on the wall, you would be able to graze straight through that as well. So we call that the magic trick here at Diode LED. It's a fun one to showcase to people in person, so I'd love to get you a sample if you don't have one. So I'm going to showcase now the 30 degree, okay, and I want you to notice here, so I'm going to kind of put it up close so you can see it's still very, very good dramatic effects. Okay, and this one's actually a little bit brighter, is why we're getting a little bit even more of a dramatic effect. You can see it still does a great job. So this is why the 30 is definitely our most commonly specified, because it's just, it can pretty much be utilized in almost every type of textured wall. Awesome. All right. So we move on here. Put that one back here. Okay. All right. So we'll move on past the demo here. Okay, so get back into the slides. So installation best practices too. Want to go through this very quickly, but Graze X, it is not field cuttable. Okay, just keep that in mind. That is because of the dual lens system. The extruded optic is very, very, you have to have a very clean cut. Also, you have to make sure that that tape light is perfectly straight on the raceway, and we have different types of things to make sure that it we use these tools to make sure that it actually goes straight all the way through. So as of now, right, it is not field cuttable. Also, I recommend aiming brackets for most applications, specifically with the 10 degree. Because the 10 degree is very narrow, sometimes due to a deeper texture, you have to actually kind of slightly bend it back in, angle it back into the wall. So keep that in mind. 10 degree, I definitely suggest those aiming brackets. And then request a sample ahead of permanent installation. This is a big one. We're very liberal with our samples. If you don't know where you need to mount it, what CCT, whatever, right, we can get you out a sample, couple of samples so that you can try it out in the space. And then also inset mounting 6 inches on each side. Okay, I talked to a lot of lighting designers about this. When people, you'll have these walls, and I'm going to showcase a few of these applications in a second, where when you go the entire length of the wall with the Graze X or any grazer, you're going to get hot spots on the adjacent walls if there are adjacent walls. So a good rule of thumb is to inset the mounting 6 inches on each side. So really, you would have, if the wall is 48 inches, right, you're going to make it 3 feet, 36 inches, 6 inches on each side, so 1 foot in all. And then mount 4 inches or closer to the wall. That's another big recommendation for the Graze X specifically. You want to be very close to that wall. Also, ask them, is it direct view or indirect view? This is a big one. Will there be a pocket frame or something to hide it up and it's out of direct view, or is it going to be in the direct view? That will help us decide what beam spread or if you need to use a louver. So keep that in mind. And then also what always helps too is the height of the wall, the width of the wall, and the depth of the texture as well. Is this like very, very small depth where the depth comes off a little bit, the texture comes off maybe an inch? Or are we looking at very, very intense depth where it comes off like 4 inches? Okay, that's different. Now the 10 degree might not be able to graze all the way through that. You need the 30 degree or the 60 degree. And then if for any other questions, if you're ever wondering how to, get it integrated into a certain application, reach out to either customer service at DiodeLED.com or technical support at DiodeLED.com. So grazing application shots, you've seen these on the website. I'll go through them quick, but these are just some of the areas that we have done grazing applications, even color changing. here. So pretty cool. Now we'll talk about the OBD. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is our new outdoor grazer that is flexible and also field cuttable. Okay, so that's the big thing with this grazer is that you can cut it every 6 inches. It's outdoor rated, still has a 5-year warranty, and it has 2 different types of optics, a 20-degree standard as well as an asymmetric optic. These are the mounting options for you. Okay, so several mounting methods for clean, professional, permanent installation. You have the straight channel. Okay, the straight channel for straight runs, but also the channel is a great way to use as a cutoff or almost like a hybrid louver, so that when you are placing this on the ground, a lot of installations with OBD are like retaining walls where they have plants in front of it. They will put this on the back side and graze up the retaining wall. Okay, the actual channel comes higher up than the actual optic, so it gives you a nice cutoff. We also have the clear lens channel with a raceway on the back, and the we have also end caps to making sure if in the field, if you have to cut it and terminate it, you can cut it and then put that end cap on. So I want to show these on the specs first, and then we'll demo them in a second. So these are kind of what they look like on the spec sheet, just so you're familiar with it. Okay, the little channel clips, and then the end caps, and I want to showcase all these really quick. Okay, so when you look at both optics, OBD, you'll notice that there is this little optic here, this forward throwing optic is the asymmetric optic. And then this is the 20-degree. So just showcasing, if you ever get samples, you can see the difference here. So these are really unique forward throwing optics. You can see also where the cut points are at. So you can actually cut this in field. This is what the end cap looks like when it's actually siliconed on. And then obviously we do have adhesive if needed, but usually we want to have this set inside some type of channel, but you'll then take the adhesive and place it in. And then I'll show, here are what the actual end caps look like. Squishy, you can put the actual silicone in. We have installation videos on this, okay? And then we have, I wanted to show the 2 different channels here. So the more common channel right now is just this standard channel. It has the kind of countersunk screws already in them, okay? And then when you place, I'll show this in a second. Let me get this on. I'm just going to show a section of this in there. Oops, that's what I need to do. My bad. Get this off. Let's do this. There we go. So when you place it in here, okay, get it all the way installed. You can see though from the side, right, the optic's in there, but from the side it gives you a really, really nice cutoff for glare control. Okay, so that's why I love this channel. But we also have this new channel, okay, that has a raceway on the back for the clips to be hidden in there. Okay, so they're not coming around. So you actually can clip this in on walls and ceilings and different things like that. And then it has a clear lens for protection. Now you don't have to use this clear lens, but this is a great option though if there's going to be high foot traffic in an area, kicking up dust, different things like that. The lens will help protect that OBD. So, and then on the wall here, so I'm going to switch back over to this camera over here. On the wall, you can see that this is the OBD that's down here, and I want to showcase something here. So the OBD, we do have, it is a grazer, but we call it a flex optic for a reason, that it's almost like a hybrid forward throwing optic. So when I put it really close to the wall, you get a nice dramatic effect, but you can pull this OBD very, very far off the wall, and you still get a graze. So for example, I mean, I'm at about 12 inches around there, and I could still pull it off the wall even more. So that's what I love about the OBD, is it makes installation and design much easier than things like the Graze X sometimes. The Graze X, you have to be very close to that wall and very precise. The OBD allows you to be able to have that either close or very, very far out, depending. You still get light thrown onto the actual geometric wall. All right. I know we're running out of time here. I'm going to just talk about these last couple things here, and then we'll get going. This is a application shot that we did with the OBD, where it's a outdoor pergola. We have actually used the OBD and similar types of optics like that to go in a outdoor cove that you can still go graze up the inside of the outdoor cove. This is a great application where someone should have used the OBD, but they use something else like uplights, landscaping uplights, and you can see this is scalloping. Again, some people love it, but if you would have ran the OBD all the way down this, you would have had not only even lighting, but you would have been able to pull out the texture from that wall. This is wall washing and scalloping put together. So this would have been a great option for the OBD. And then the last one is our brand new wall washer. And so the Broadwave, the main thing I want you to remember with our Broadwave is two things. It is 120 volt, so you don't have to deal with drivers. Okay, so on commercial projects, engineers can't stand having to figure out where they're going to put low voltage drivers. So this is great for commercial, even residential. So no driver, 120 on board, but also the DMX decoder is integrated into the fixture. This is another big one. Now you don't have to figure out where you're going to put all your decoders, how you're going to house them, all that good stuff. Now the decoder is on board. Okay, this comes in 2-foot or 4-foot sections, and you can do about daisy chaining them up to about 30 fixtures. And we tested this out on certain buildings. Right now we're going with about 4 stories to 5 stories. You can get up on a commercial building. It's not meant to be skyscrapers. It's not meant for those large, 20-story buildings. This is more for 80% of the other outdoor washing applications that you get. So just keep that in mind. I want to show a video really quick. Is that showing on the thing or no?
Yeah.
It is? Because it's on mine, it's not. Okay. So this is just a outside of our company right here, showcasing the OBD. Just note there's a little cutoff at the top of the building, which is why it's not looking like it goes higher up. So I'll showcase this one more time. I think it's just a really, really cool video to see the different colors and texture and what RGBW wall washing can do to a building. It can really create an amazing dramatic effect. All right. So the demo here, I just want to show all it is this is it right here on our stone wall. We're actually having it cycle through different colors. Okay. I'll show it right here. It's a this is our little 2-foot section here. So not very big, not much material. We have the adjustable clips on there as well. Okay, so still pretty nice form factor. And I'll go to the top down here just to end it off, and then we'll finish this. So this is the little adjustable clips here that you can utilize. Okay, and then these are the end caps that you can use as well for the Broadwave. All right, drivers, pretty simple. OmniDrive X for all static white colors and warm dim, okay? As you can see there, compatible static white, warm dim, and then you have the VLM, which is our constant voltage driver for the Grazing RGBW. As of now, the OBD does not come in color changing, so only the Grazing has the RGBW, warm dim, and static white, and then the Broadwave is 120 volt, so you don't need an actual driver. And the last part, grazing techniques, really quick. I know I went over here. What not to do, okay? That's the big one. So this is, in my opinion, what not to do. This is what traditional grazers give you. So, on the left side and then the bottom right, this is where they'll use some type of downlight or track light, and you can see how it kind of scatters out in the beginning and then, gets wider at the bottom. It's not evenly grazing or washing that wall. Also, the one on the kind of middle bottom left here, this is where you get that inconsistency of light as well, where you don't have good optics. It's brighter in the beginning and then it falls off at the end. Or like the top right, these kind of different scalloping types of techniques that I'm not as big of a fan of. This is a pocket frame. Okay, so a pocket frame is another technique that I want to put on your radar where if you are early on in the design and planning stages of the project, okay, you can build out a pocket frame to house the grazer inside of it so that it is in indirect view, but it's still grazing down the geometric wall. You can also use dual grazing. So since our Graze X is a fifth of the price or a fourth of the price, we have a lot of projects where they have 40-foot, 50-foot walls that have a lot of texture to it. So we'll take one Graze X, put it closer to the wall, graze down the first half, take the second Graze X, put it more like 4 inches, 5 inches away from the wall, and graze down the second half, okay? So just another little cool technique. And then I wanted you to notice, though, something really quick. Notice, though, on this wall, this on the right side and the left side, This is what happens when you don't inset it by 6 inches, okay, or even 4 to 6 inches, is you get that beam of light on the adjacent wall. And then really to end it, right, where do you start? Just at the end, planning your installation, right, your design, this is what we always want to focus on. If you start with the light source, everything else falls into place. Okay, so what is the CCT that they want? Do they want static white, or do they want to have the option for colors? Do they want to have the option for, warm dim? Okay, what are the surrounding color schemes in the space? Is it softer colors, reds and browns, or is it more light colors and grays and whites? How much supplemental lighting is in the space? Is this grazer or wall washer really need to actually produce a lot of foot candles because you don't have much supplemental lighting, or do you have a bunch of downlights, floor lamps, decorative fixtures, etc.? What are the expectations of the lumen output? Is this homeowner or end user, people that are going to use this space, are they much older where we need to really produce more light? Or are they younger in space? Do they like a lot of light? Or are they more of a lower dim style of lighting that they're familiar with? Also, the height of the textured wall that is being grazed. If you figure out what source of light they want, if it's static white, now you know that you can use a regular driver with a dimmer on the wall. If you go to color changing, now you know you need a constant voltage driver and you need a third-party control system. So that's the point of always trying to figure out what source of light they want. Okay, that is the idea. Then every additional component will fall into place. All right, so grazing opportunities. This is really the end. To end it off, I want you guys to think of some unique grazing opportunities that you have done in the past or that you are working on. If you submit them to us, we are going to pick a winner, and we're going to ship you out, obviously, all of the products that we talked about today so that you have samples, as well as some fun geometric wall that I have that I'm going to send out to you. So you're going to send those applications or application shots. It doesn't have to be as pretty as this. It doesn't even have to be finished. I'm looking for either very creative application shots or very, very unique ways where maybe it's not traditional way to use a grazer, but you figured out a way to maybe graze a curved ceiling of some sort. If you have those, please submit them to training@diodeled.com. It will be on the screen here in just a second. So just keep that in mind. We're going to give we're going to give until a week from here to pick the winner. So you have a week from today to submit these applications. Okay, and then just note this will be uploaded on the YouTube page, Elemental LED YouTube page, in about 2 weeks. Okay, it's always going to be kind of scattered by 2 weeks. You can see all of the ones that we have done in the past. We have a playlist. That's the quarterly virtual specifier training. And then if you ever want to check out any of these products that we talked about, you can check out our reel-to-reel playlist. These are monthly 15-minute, usually single product deep dives that are virtual trainings. We have already done one on the OBD and GrazeX, and we are doing our next one on the Broadway. So questions? This is the email, by the way, though, that you send in your applications to. So if you want to win some cool stuff, I'm going to send a bunch of stuff out to you. Awesome. Again, sorry I went over time today. It was a lot to try to throw in. I appreciate you joining us. This has been recorded, so if there's anyone on your team that wants to check this out, it will be up on our YouTube page in 2 weeks. You can check out the past ones. Our next one is, I think, I'm actually forgetting, but it's you should have, if you signed up for the whole year, you should have it on your calendar as well. We will be sending out emails to notify you as well. So my name's Cam, Senior National Training Manager here at Dowd LED, and I'll see you on the next one.